Hi everyone. So the purpose of this video is to show you how to incorporate text into a linoleum cut relief print. So if I was to translate this directly onto my block like this, and then make a print from it, in the print the words would come out backwards. So in order to avoid that, I'm going to use this. I'm then going to flip it over. Instead of, like in the last demo, coating the back side of your image with a soft pastel, charcoal, or graphite, you're instead going to coat this side, so the front side, and then you're going to put it face down. That way you can translate it backwards onto your block. So I've used a marker that bleeds through quite a bit, so I'm still able to see the text here and translate that over. I can also just quickly go through and reinforce the drawing, so I definitely don't have an issue with the transfer process. So you can also do this process using tracing paper, so drawing the image on and then flipping it over to have the backwards image. So next I'm going to coat the front side of my drawing with some material that will transfer over. I just tried it with this wax pastel and it was too waxy, not soft enough to transfer. So I'm going over with a soft lead pencil. This is a 6B pencil. So in the last demonstration you might have seen, I coated the back side of my image. Here, because I want this image to be reversed on the block, I'm going to coat the front side of the image. So you can see on the back, I've got my backwards image, which is how I want to carve it. So I always like to tape my image down. And now I can go through and bear down along that drawing to ensure that it'll transfer. And if you're unsure, just peek a little bit, double check. And if you want to skip this process entirely, I could probably just go through with a marker that'll bleed through and just sort of overdo it with the marker, and it might bleed through. So it bled through a little bit, not quite as much as I would like. Alright, so hopefully it transferred. It's not going to be perfect. That's okay. Alright, so it looks alright. Not perfect, but I'm now going to go through with my Sharpie and I'm going to look back at my backwards image and I'm going to reinforce the drawing. Alright, so now I'm ready to carve. So I've gone through with my Sharpie, reinforced the drawing. So when you're carving, it's important to think about negative space and to carve out the negative space around your drawing itself. When doing this, you might be left with some residual textures, which could be an added interesting element to your print. I would do a test print before deciding to carve away every bit of the textures in your negative space. I also wanted to show you guys how you can create a reduction print. So we're not getting too deep into this because there's a lot more elements involved in this process, but I wanted to at least show you so you have the option of trying it and doing some more research in order to make it work for you. So a reduction print is basically when you have multiple layers and you're removing sections of the block with each layer. So this is my original print, so I'm thinking maybe I'll do a layer of like an orange pink color and then I'll carve out some more from the insides of these letters, and then do another black layer, just to give it a little bit more variety. Let's see. Okay, so I'm gonna kind of make like a hot pink orange color. And then I always like to spread my ink out a bit so it doesn't get too clumped up on any part of my brayer. All right. And when you're making a reduction print, the easiest way to register it is to use some sort of translucent paper. So this is just tracing paper. There's also a paper called vellum that's really, really beautiful printing paper. But what's really nice about using transparent paper for a reduction print is you can register it, which means you can place it down on top of the first layer with it perfectly aligned without having to have a registration jig. So a registration jig is another option. You can make a jig using cardboard or wood, any other stiff material like mat board, which basically is a jig that you can then place the paper perfectly inside that will line it up with your first layer. All right, so here's my first layer. I'm going to make a few more prints, and then I'm going to carve back into my block. So next I'm going to add my layer of black. So I've carved out the centers of the inside of every one of these letters, and I've gotten rid of some of the textural background. Also, I did a bit of printing on some paper, which I stained with a mix of red and blue into a purple, so kind of like a purple wash. I also added a bit of coffee. So I stained this paper with coffee as well as purple watered down paint. Alright, so this is the tricky part. So in order to line up your print, using transparent paper is one way to do it. So another way you can do it is putting your block down on top of the paper itself and then going through and flipping it over. All right. All right, so it's definitely not going to be perfect. But so far it's looking pretty cool. One thing I love about reduction prints is if you don't print it perfectly, a lot of the time it'll create this interesting three-dimensional effect. So here it is. Turned out pretty cool. And I'm excited to see how that looks on the purple background. And one thing that's really great about printmaking and using printmaking as a form of protest or activism is that you can really easily make tons and tons and tons of prints, and then you can either pass them out to people you know, or you can sell them for really cheap in order to raise money for an organization. But there's lots of ways to get your work out there, and this is a great mode of spreading ideas. And it's true that printing on a thicker paper, like this watercolor paper, does mean you have to rub on the back a little bit harder than something as thin as this tracing paper. So a lot of printmakers will print on really thin paper for this reason, because it absorbs the ink really quickly. And it's never a bad idea to just take a peek before you commit to pulling it up and go just a little bit longer. A lot of the time the edges are the main places where the ink doesn't quite transfer enough. Alright, so I'm pretty happy with this. I think the added element of multiple colors is helpful in letting the statements sort of stand out. Well, that's about it. Hope you guys are doing okay. And please let me know if you have any trouble along the way, and I'd love, love, love to help you out. All right, have a good one, guys. Bye.